I'm sure people by now has seen the carry on in Strabane, where the terrorist who had been in jail for murdering a member of the security forces, his conscience got the better of him and he ended up committing suicide in the prison, in police custody. But with that all said and done, that is not the worst of this whole situation. We've seen today the IRA out in Strabane. They walked out of this man's house. So first off, we called for the arrest of whoever owns that house that coffin was at. The people that live in it need to be arrested and questioned about the activity that went on around that house. Now that wasn't a few individuals or a small pocket of dissidents. There was a large number of men there in white shorts, black ties. The gunmen walked out and they fired their volley of shots into the air. They were not antique guns that they had. Their guns are supposed to be decommissioned. Again, we see guns on our streets that are supposed to be decommissioned. When are we going to waken up to what's going on in this country? The IRA have not decommissioned. They have not went away. And we'll see how many Republicans call for an investigation into that incident today. They're crying about what happened to this poor man in jail. This poor man that went to jail was arrested for committing an offence. His conscience got the better of him for what he did so many years ago when he murdered somebody, and he couldn't stand having to go back to jail again. That is the true facts of that. Now, they called for inquiries into that, what happened to him in the police station. Well, let's see Sinn Féin calling for the inquiries now into why gunmen were on the streets of Strabane firing volleys of shots into the air, and why there was maybe the guts of 100 men there in white shorts and black ties who were quite obviously connected to the Republican movement, who clapped and cheered whenever these hooded scumbags fired these volley of shots up into the air. Like, when is our people going to waken up? When is the police going to do their job? These men come out in broad daylight and did this. Now, they say there was a helicopter hovering overhead. Well, I don't know if it was a police one or a hired one. It's hard to know nowadays because policing has become so bad, you don't know what we have. It could have been a hired helicopter with a policeman on board. That's how bad things are in Northern Ireland. So now we have them at the funerals of these people. They're not even content to let it go with burying them. Because if they were burying them, we would be passing no remarks. Anybody should be allowed to bury their dead. But they're doing more than burying their dead. They're glorifying their dead, thereby glorifying the actions of their dead. And by doing that, they're justifying the murders of our loved ones. And that's where the problem rests. Sinn Féin will mouth and slobber all they want, but at the end of the day, what we've seen today is the true side of the Republican movement. Let's see how many inquiries is called for from the Sinn Féin, from the mouthpiece of Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness and Francie Malloy. Let's see how many times they speak up and ask for an inquiry or ask for these people to be arrested. They talk about what happened in Coleraine. What happened in Coleraine should not have happened, but it did happen. Both sides were to blame. But in this situation, let's see how many from each side calls for an inquiry, because in Coleraine, both the Unionists and the DUP and SDLP and Sinn Féin all called for inquiries. But here's a situation where we have masked and dangerous gunmen on our streets. What are you going to do about it? Or are we going to have to put up with it? Well, these people tell us that if you get enough money, you will hand over policing and justice. Basically what you're saying, you will hand over this country into the hands of terrorists. Well, it's not good enough. It's not acceptable. It is time this chief constable, new chief constable, is now in. You make your mark and let law and order be what it's supposed to be, upheld by the police force of Northern Ireland.